Ranking every LMG in Warzone from meta to garbage. This is a list that is constantly changing for major updates every single month, so I like to make these tier lists every 2 months on all the Warzone weapons. And this tier list will be showing you what you need to be using. And let's jump straight into the Modern Warfare light machine guns, where the Holger 26 is probably the worst one in the entire game and it's going to garbage tier. I don't need to say much, but the time to kill is over 1100 milliseconds and you have really slow mobility. That is an awful combination. Never use this weapon. Now I'm going to do the next two together, the Bruin and PKM, and these are two of the top end LMGs in all of Warzone, so they're both going into meta. Now they both have an 800 millisecond TTK at long range, which people think that NZ41 is broken with 828 milliseconds. These both kill faster. Sure, they're going to be a little bit slower. They have exactly the same reload times, but the reason I think the PKM is better, ADS speed is going to be much better on it than the Bruin, as well as you're going to have a little bit less recoil, so it's just a slightly better version of the Bruin MK9. Now we're going to get to the SA87, which is basically a Cold War AK with slower mobility, so I would call the Cold War AK competitive, but since this thing's a little bit slower and you have the really tiny clip on it for an LMG, only 30 rounds, you can get to 50, it's only going to go into viable. The War LMG. This LMG I really don't like, but if you actually look at the time to kill on it, is very competitive and better than most assault rifles, but you're going to be way slower and you don't have very good recoil, but just because it has higher potential, I will call it viable. The Fin LMG, this is one I have trouble putting between competitive and top meta. If you put on the had first barrel, you get a 660 millisecond time to kill, which is absolutely insane, but you only have 75 bullets in the clip and the damage per bullet is very low, so your ammo is just going to go away so quickly. It's going to evaporate. So you have issues with damage per mag in bigger modes, and the mobility is really bad on it, but you also have the chainsaw variant that's really fun, and then the long shot barrel, which gives you a 950 millisecond TTK, but then you don't have the problem with damage per mag. I'm only going to put it in competitive, but it definitely can outclass pretty much any gun at long range when you're using it. The MG34, this is sort of in the same ballpark as the War LMG, where you have a pretty good time to kill, and by pretty good I mean it's actually going to be better than 90% of the assault rifles in the game, but you have a lot of recoil that's hard to control, and the potential puts it in viable. I'm actually going to put this one below average because I think the high fire rate makes it even more difficult to use than the War LMG. You know, it's on the border. The M91, this is going to go into viable, and it's just going to be because it feels like an LMG and it acts like an LMG, but you only have like an average time to kill. It just isn't elite. It's just going to be a decent weapon overall, but I wouldn't like go running out to use it. If you're enjoying this tier list so far, please make sure to like the video, and if you want to subscribe to see more tier lists like this or top 10 videos or comparing weapons directly to keep on top of the Warzone game, make sure to click that button right now. Now we're going to go over to the Cold War weapons, and the M60 is basically an M91 but worse, nowhere near as bad as the Holger, so it's going to go into the below average category. There's not much to say about it. It's really slow, slightly below average time to kill, and harder to aim, so don't use it. Now the RPD, this is another weapon that is going to be on the edge of meta and competitive. You get the 828 millisecond TTK, like that NC41 on the assault rifle side that everyone thinks is OP, but you get worse mobility here. But the good thing about the RPD is you have a really good base aim down sight speed of 350 milliseconds for an LMG, but you can't really put any attachments towards increasing that because you have to put your attachments into trying to get the weapon as accurate as possible, which it does do that. I don't know whether to put meta or competitive, but I'm going to throw it just ahead of the Fin in the competitive category. The Stoner 63, you're going to notice this on a lot of LMGs. They typically have better time to kills than assault rifles to make up for their slow mobility, but this thing has really bad accuracy after they nerfed it. You'll remember it used to be meta on Verdansk, and then they nerfed it into the ground with its recoil, so I think it's a little bit too hard to use to be considered anything above viable. The MG82 is going to be the M82 on this list because I can't find the image down here, but M82 almost the same thing. This is going to go straight into competitive, and it's going to be kind of the opposite reason of the RPD. It's going to have like a really good time to kill, 770 milliseconds, so that's going to be even better than these two in the meta category, but you have a lot of vertical recoil, making it very difficult to use past 100 meters. But if we're just talking Rebirth exclusively, I'd probably throw this thing into the meta category because it has a really good fire rate, really good time to kill, and if you mount that sucker up, it's going to be a beam. Now we've made it over to the Vanguard weapons because there's only 4 LMGs from Cold War, which I found to be crazy, but we're going to start with the MG42. This is going to be just like the MG34 or the MG82. I think it's middle ground. You're going to be really accurate like the MG82, but it takes 17 bullets to knock someone at long range. I don't think you understand how many that is. The 300 health really hurt this weapon just because your ammo is going to feel like it's evaporating quickly, and you're going to feel like you're just hitting them with a billion bullets and they're still up. I always find weapons that take more than like 14 shots to knock at long range to be way too many. All right, the Bren. This thing used to be super meta with its unlimited range, which which made it OP. You're only going to get a 900 millisecond TTK or 920 millisecond time to kill, depending on what magazine you use. But I just don't think it is quite good enough to be considered meta. But it would still be a competitive weapon because that time to kill puts us along with the top end ARs like the STG, but we got the same time to kill as the Cold War AK-47, which is still a very competitive weapon. It's up to you, but there's better LMGs to use than the Bren now. The DP-27. This LMG is going to kill 900 milliseconds just like the Bren can, but I think it's more accurate, and you get a 105 round mag for the most accurate variant of this, whereas if you want the Bren to be super accurate, you got to use the 40 round mag. So the DP-27 is definitely better than the Bren. I'm not sure if I can quite put it into the meta category because these two LMGs kill 100 milliseconds faster and they're just as accurate as it. I think I'm just going to put it into the competitive category. The Type 11 is an interesting one. You can put on a barrel like you used to be able to on the Bren where you get unlimited range, but what that barrel does is it actually makes the close range time to kill get worse to just match the long range TTK, so it doesn't really help that much. But the long range time to kill is going to be around 920 milliseconds, which is definitely pretty good, but you got to use the 45 round mag to get the best TTK, so I only think it's viable. It's definitely not going to be one of your top end LMGs. The Whitley, I don't have the image of it, so it's just going to be this top break pistol, but the Whitley is going to be the one LMG to not be for Modern Warfare that I think is a meta one. It's a beam, has a super fast time to kill. Sure, the mobility isn't great, but what can you expect on an LMG? So it's still not going to be quite as good as the Bruin or PKM, but it is very good and definitely deserves to be a meta weapon. Now, if you want to see a tier list of the ARs or the SMGs, I got them both linked here, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.